Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching this Andrew Tate interview. A lot of you have been asking me to watch this video and react to it. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's watch.
Are you a good partner?
The best, of course.
The best? What makes you the best?
Besides you and the police, I don't often answer questions.
Okay. He's definitely had a police interview in the past.
I don't like to answer open-ended questions because I feel like they're a trap.
Why?
Because when you speak a lot, it's how you end up getting trapped, right? It doesn't matter if it's a police interview or anything else. The more you talk, the worse.
Okay, again, so if we just look at the verbatim, it's like, huh? You don't answer open-ended questions on a date or in a friendly conversation. You only answer yes or no questions. That's bizarre. You consider them a trap, like people are out to get you. 2, you've been answering open-ended questions in a very open-ended manner the entire time. You've never said yes, no, maybe. You've always answered in long explanations, so I don't understand what you're saying there. But if we look at the emotional content, if we look at what is prompting him to do this, he's rejecting the question. That is what's happening. He is, in his way, refusing to answer the question. And I forget the question he's refusing to answer.
Things to just get attention. Do you understand? Do you agree with my point?
Not always. Listen, there's men that are funny, that aren't that attractive, that can get attention. It's like an energy thing.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I disagree. I know what you're saying. They can get attention, but I don't think anyone would look at a funny guy who lives with his mom and call him a high-value male. Whereas if you get a really, really beautiful...
There are so many people that would look at a very funny person who still lives with their parents and consider them to be a high-value partner. Because we cannot reduce people to living at home with their parents as the only thing about that human being. This person could be caring and loving and interesting and funny and generous and has a great relationship with their parents. And this is not even mentioning that in various cultures around the world, people stay at home their entire lives. It's just not a stigmatized thing like it is in the West. You could be very successful while you live at home. You could have a home business or, I don't know, there's all sorts of... So this reduction is interesting. And people who garner a lot, from what I understand, he's very charismatic among the Manosphere, and particularly younger people. So let me talk about that for a second. So when we, as a society in the West, inject a bunch of weird ideas about gender into our children, in our family homes, in advertising, on the internet, at schools, in politics, when we inject all these ideas into children, one being that in order to be a worthy human being, if you're a man, if you're a boy, you need to be all the things that he is ascribing to. And if you're not, you're worthless. You're either a girl or you're weak or whatever is the opposite of the ideal masculine man. And that is the worst thing you could be. You could be the best person in the world, but if people see you as a girl or as weak, you're nothing. You are nothing. You're worthless. No one will love you, no one will like you, and you should hate yourself, is the message that we give our boys. Okay. So then, as a boy, you start to try to enact the ideal. You try to become the ideal as a man, as a boy, and you can't achieve it because it's really unachievable. And you really fall short of it. And you're suffering on the inside. You hate yourself. You want someone to come along and help you. And you start reaching out to people. And everyone's just telling you, look, you're fine, or maybe you should stop being so aggressive or something. And they don't seem to be really resonating with you. It doesn't seem to fit the advice you're getting or the care you're giving, the therapy you're getting. It just doesn't seem to fit because you are basing your life on trying to be the toxic masculine ideal. And no one seems to be acknowledging it, even though all these subtle messages. Now, you don't frame it that way. You don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm trying to be a toxic man. What you're trying to do is you're trying to establish self-esteem. You're trying to establish worth, but it's based on a premise of toxic masculinity. You don't know that, but that's what's happening. And when you reach out to people, they give you all this advice because the conscious advice that people will give will be, you have worth. You don't need to be a toxic male. You don't need to be aggressive. You can have emotions. You don't have to be successful to have worth in society. You don't have to have tons of money to be a worthy human being. But the child, the boy, has been inundated. 99.9% of the messages that they've received about gender have been the opposite of what they're being told. Okay. Then Andrew Tate comes along and goes on the internet and starts talking assertively without any apologies what society has been injecting into boys. And they go, finally, someone is saying it, and he has answers, and he is the toxic male ideal. So he is the leader I've been looking for. He is the leader that society has been subtly telling me I should be attracted to. And it feels good. And everyone starts to attack him. Everyone starts to attack the child. And they're like, but it feels right to me. He feels right. He feels like the role model I've been looking for that is very much lacking in our society. So that's how I see it. If we want to, but what will happen is that we cancel Andrew Tate and we say, okay, job done. I have succeeded. No, we have not, because we have not stopped socializing our boys in a particular way, really all children in a particular way. Now, you as parents out there, you might be saying, well, I don't do that to my children. And if you aren't, then great, fantastic. But you cannot do anything about society, schools, peers, the internet. It's all there. Is it changing? Yes. But it's not gone, clearly, since you have middle school boys who love Andrew Tate. I mean, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. Not all middle school boys, of course, but many. So we should be looking at ourselves, not Andrew Tate. If we change ourselves and society, if we really do that, and we've been trying and we've been putting effort into it for many decades, but once we achieve that change, the Andrew Tates of the world will just not exist. They will emerge and no one will pay attention to them because they won't be touching on a nerve that is being neglected.
Girl, even if she has nothing else going for her, she'd be considered high value.
I wouldn't say high value, no.
Yeah, we can disagree. That's fine.
Are you a good partner?
The best, of course.
The best. What makes you the best?
Okay, so that's the open-ended question. What makes you the best partner? Okay, so then he proceeds to reject the question. So if I was to take a guess, it's because it requires him to sell himself to her. That's the kind of premise of the question. She's like, what makes you the best partner? Prove to me that you would be a good partner for me or to women in general. And that puts him at a disadvantage, is my guess. And so he doesn't want to say, well, I don't like that question because it puts me at a disadvantage and it makes me feel weak, and I don't like that. I don't want to be in a position where you could reject me, where I could say, I am a good partner because of these things, and then she would have the ability to say, well, actually, in our conversation, you aren't that. So she would have the upper hand. I can't tolerate that because I'm too insecure and or I've been abused and am constantly trying to assert my dominance over other people. And so I'm not going to answer that question, but I can't say why I don't want to answer the question. So I will be very sneaky and tricksy with my response. Let's see.
Is she the best?
Besides you and the police, I don't often answer questions.
Okay. He's definitely had a police interview in the past.
I don't like to answer open-ended questions because I feel like they're a trap.
Why?
Because when you speak a lot, it's how you end up getting trapped, right? It doesn't matter if it's a police interview or anything else. The more you talk, the worse.
The other possibility is that he has been burned by conversations where someone asked him open-ended questions, or he was burned by his own vulnerability or something, and so he's really quite afraid of those questions, but I don't know.
I want you to be very, very specific with your parameters within the questioning, because that allows me to answer them in a way which makes me look the best.
I don't know, I feel like
Interesting. So he, I think, just admitted to what I was surmising, that he wants to have control. He's like, ask me a specific question because then I will know how to answer in a way that'll make me look the best. Make me look the best. So that's his orientation, always looking the best, coming across as dominant, superior, as above it, as better than.
very confident man that was very sure of himself would just answer.
Do you think so?
Mm-hmm.
Because
I feel like you're just being calculated.
Okay, a very innocent man, would he just...
Okay, so this is really interesting because she said a very short version, concise version of what I'm saying, which is a confident man would feel confident enough to answer that question. You know, it's similar to a confident man or person doesn't feel like they have to adhere to traditional gender roles to establish their worth because they like themselves enough. For men out there who are trying to be a strong male, if that's what you're aspiring for, you should be able to cry because real men don't worry about what other people think of their emotions. Real men have the confidence enough to cry and be vulnerable and to ask for things. Real men who are strong enough, who aren't worried about being called weak, are able to ask for directions, ask for help, go to the doctor, admit when they're wrong. That's what a confident man is like. They can cry, they can sob, they can be hurt, they can admit to vulnerabilities because that's what humans are. And insecure men will cover that up. So anyway, she says confident man would just answer the open-ended question. So this will be fascinating to see how he will answer this.
Makes me look the best.
I don't know, I feel like a very confident man that was very sure of himself would just answer.
Do you think so?
Mm-hmm.
If
Because I feel like it's just being calculated.
Okay, a very innocent man, would he just answer the police?
Yeah. If he's innocent.
He ridicules her. He's laughing at her. He's making her feel stupid and small and ridiculous, which is an interesting tactic on a first date.
No?
No, of course not.
But he's innocent.
Doesn't mean anything. Innocent and guilty in and of itself is a false paradigm. You have to understand that the world we live in, there is no black and white. There's no such thing. It's all a sliding scale. If they want to find you guilty, they'll find you guilty. I guarantee you sold something to a
So I can't tell why he's going down this road. It could just be that he wants to establish he knows things, or that he's superior, he's trying to belittle her, or he really is connecting what he's talking about to her question earlier, which was, okay, you state that you're a good catch, that you're a good partner. What makes you a good partner? He's basically saying that there's a danger there, that when someone asks you that question, what makes you a good person for me? Essentially, how will I accept you or not accept you? Prove yourself that you are acceptable to me is kind of the question, I guess. I mean, that's not precisely what, it's not that harsh, but that is kind of what's being asked. I don't think it was malicious on her part. I think it was out of curiosity. But that idea, and then if he perceives it as akin to a police investigation that is trying to catch you, that's trying to corner you and get an innocent person to be found guilty, that sounds like he feels threat. He's scared of the question. That is the emotional theme potentially, but I don't know. It's hard to know what's going on in his heart.
mate on eBay 7 years ago didn't pay tax. Boom, you're going to jail. I'm enjoying this conversation, and I understand every point she's making, and I'm being deliberately abrasive. However, the truth is about the masculine-feminine dynamic is that females like men who are completely in charge and run their life exactly how they want, and they comply and bend to the man's wills and lifestyle.
He's straight out of the Manosphere, and I don't know how old he is, but I wonder if he became indoctrinated as a young age. I don't know, maybe recently as well. This idea that women do not want the nice guy. So let me talk about this really. It's a really prominent idea, maybe one of the central 4 pillars of the Manosphere, that women say they want a sensitive man, but in reality, they want a strong, assertive alpha male, this whole speech. And the whole scientific notion of an alpha male is nonsensical when you actually look at it, because we have in our field, we've looked at the premise of the alpha male. Does it exist? Does it not? What does it mean? It's nonsensical. The way that people describe alpha males is not a type of personality. It's not a type of person. You could maybe loosely connect it to certain behaviors. It's not well defined. But anyway, in the Manosphere, there's this notion that all women, all 4 billion of them around the planet, all they really want, whether they are conscious of it or not, they want a man who will take control of them. This is the same thing that was being said during slavery in the United States, that black people in slavery, they want to be enslaved because they know they can't exist on their own. They need to have someone be a master over them, because if they don't have a master that is controlling them, then they will fall into debauchery and chaos and many terrible other things. And so they need us to dominate them. They want us to dominate them. It justifies the patriarchy. It justifies sexism. It is a convenient conclusion that justifies sexism. Now, are there some women who will even say out loud and be accurate that for them, they want a man who is assertive? They don't want someone who is wishy-washy. They want a man who is sure of himself. They want someone who is dominant. They want traditional gender roles. They want a man who drives the car and opens the door for them and goes to work and makes all the important decisions in the family. Are there some women that will say that? Yeah, absolutely. There will be some men that will say that. There will be people of all genders that will say things like that. So yes, there are examples, and that's fine. As long as that person has the freedom to choose otherwise and has really thought about this, and it is best for them. It's a style of life. It's fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. But a lot of people do not want to be dominated by another person. A lot of people don't want to dominate another person. They want a partner, someone at the same level. They want to work together. So it's this really ridiculous notion. So if he wants a traditional gender role relationship, then fine. If he can find someone that also wants that, and no one is disempowered in reality, that both people have the power to assert themselves if they want to, then under most circumstances, that's fine. But to say that all women want that, and thus I am going to assert my dominance over all women in all situations because that's really what they want, is a very convenient excuse for sexism, dominance, patriarchy, control.
To come along to a woman and say, how do you want me to be so that you like me, is a death sentence for the relationship. So that's how it works.
This dichotomy, this very black and white world that he lives in. So you either are an alpha male who is very dominant, very controlling, and very much in control and superior over the woman, or you're an insecure guy who is asking the woman, who should I be? Yeah, when you see the world in that black and white manner, it does look more attractive, I suppose, to some people. They would want the more dominant end of the spectrum. There's plenty of people actually would much rather have the person who's saying, how should I be? But neither option is very palatable to most people. There's so many other options there. Someone who's confident enough to work collaboratively with their partner. Someone who at times wants the other person to take over, and at other times they would like to be in control, and they negotiate that or whatever. But this preoccupation with dominance and control and this black and white way of thinking, all of his examples are, you're either a super successful CEO with a boat and lots of money and good looks, or you're a loser who lives at home with your parents. There's no one else on the planet. You're either totally dominant as a man and constantly in control of your woman, or you're a guy who's groveling in the corner, unsure of himself, doesn't know what to do. Those are the two humans on the planet to him.
What kind of man do you want to be?
I want to be a man who lives true to himself, and a man who goes to sleep easy at night, and a man who knows that he's living true to his biological necessities and instincts.
And there's the other justification, the biological necessity. During slavery, it was another pillar that upheld the atrocities that was involved in slavery, that black people are biologically, genetically inferior. And many in my field actually propose science to quote unquote, back that up. So yeah, and it's now, I guess, still being used to prop up sexism. I didn't know people still adhered to this. Well, I guess I did. But so yeah, my biological mandate that men are superior, and there's so much nonsense in biology, science, because you have sexism within biology, within evolutionary psychology, all sorts of nonsense. And so yeah, it's now as he starts to get into this language, this is actually, he's speaking to the dominant, in my estimation, point of view. Most people believe that there are inherent biological, psychological differences between men and women that have not been demonstrated by science. Are there differences between men and women? Yes. Are there differences between all sorts of groups of people? Yeah. But the conclusions that people will make, like men are supposed to be in control, are ridiculous. There will be people that will uphold sexual harassment at work because they will point to research studies that demonstrate that certain aspects of being male, having testosterone, for example, will raise certain incidents of behavior like sexual thoughts in one's mind. And thus, it's the mandate. It's we were born this way, and thus you can't prosecute us. You can't ask for a non-hostile workplace because that's just how men are, and that's just the way things are. People will make those arguments, and so he, I'm guessing, lives in that world. Now, if I was to slow down and think about if he were sitting on my couch and he were saying these things, all I would be hearing, and every time I work with someone who's like this, it always pans out, is underneath this bravado is a very insecure person who feels very weak. Another thing to think about in terms of what's actually going on inside of someone is the way that they make you feel. Because if they belittle you, if they make you feel small, then they probably feel small on the inside. If they make you feel stupid, they probably feel stupid. If they make you feel unattractive, they probably feel unattractive on the inside. It doesn't always pan out that way, but it often does. And I could talk about various different psychological models that will explain that. It's hard to really nail down scientifically, but it is something that tends to be true. And so as she's talking to him, and if I were talking to him and I was trying to, he would not trigger me. I'm not triggered at all. I thought I'd be more triggered by him. So many people were emailing, you got to talk about Andrew Tate. I thought I would be more up in arms, but I'm really not. I guess I'm really used to this kind of person. I've had many clients like him. And there's an Andrew Tate inside of me. I was indoctrinated into the same gender norms as he was. And I'm older than him, so I probably have it more so than he did. I grew up in the 70s when it was worse. So I have all these ideas rattling around in my head, and they were told to me. I was indoctrinated as well. I just have really worked hard and wrestled with gender and myself and my upbringing and society for 30 plus years or so, at least 25, and have an understanding of what I should regard and what I shouldn't, and da-da-da. So anyway, yeah, he's not triggering me really at all. The only thing I see is someone who is struggling, somewhat, or he's putting on an act. We always have to wonder about that, because people know in today's media landscape that if you make a splash, I watch reality TV and react to it. And so it's been accused anyway that some people will come on reality TV and will act very dramatically, even though they don't naturally want to do that, because they know through calculation, either right or wrong, that they will actually get more clicks and they will be invited onto other reality TV shows. They'll get more followers, even if people hate them, for example. So we have to wonder if this is all an act. So we have no idea if this is a truthful representation of what's going on in his heart or in his mind. The other thing I'll say is I'm not diagnosing him with anything, and I haven't diagnosed him with anything. I'm only proposing hypotheses about what I would be thinking if I had a client like this. That I'm a therapy psychology YouTube channel, and so I want to be clear that I have no idea who he is. I could have a completely distorted idea of who he is. I do know the experiences that I've had with clients and with myself regarding gender and people in my life. But anyway, so if I had a client like this, and I have, who sit down in my chair on my office and they talk in this vein, in this vibe, where it's a lot of pontificating, a lot of defensiveness, a lot of dominance, and a lot of communication around who they are and how they're superior. And every time that I've seen that, I have learned later on that underneath all that was a very abused inner child, someone who felt the opposite of what they're trying to portray. It's similar to when you see a teenager. The classic comedic way of portraying a teenager is to have a teenager that's like, whatever, right? That's just classic. Roll your eyes, whatever. We all understand that comes from the fact that the child is extremely insecure. Now, when they say, whatever, they're trying to act like, I reject you, I don't care. I'm cool as a cucumber, nothing affects me. But it's the opposite. Teenagers are deeply affected by things. They're experiencing a whole new world of emotion and the future and all these things. And they are highly interested in acceptance and highly interested in what's going on in their lives. And they're feeling things in very intense ways, but it's embarrassing and they are out of control, particularly when they're not supported, particularly when they've been indoctrinated into an idea that they're not supposed to have emotions, blah, blah. And so they resort to whatever, because at the very least, they can say to themselves, I think I'm coming across like I'm cool as a cucumber. I don't feel like I'm cool as a cucumber, but at least I'm coming across that way to other people. So maybe I can go to bed thinking at least I didn't humiliate myself today. And so it's the same for people who present this way sometimes, is that they are on a constant treadmill of trying to go to sleep that night saying, I didn't humiliate myself. I didn't come across as the way I feel, which is weak, inferior, lesser than, unworthy, unacceptable, unattractive. At least I came across like I didn't care, like I have it all, like I'm sure of myself, I'm confident, I'm smart, I know what I'm saying, and at least I can say that. And sometimes that becomes your primary persona and you start kind of believing it, whereas underneath it all you feel. So a truly confident individual, a truly attractive individual, doesn't make you feel small, doesn't make you feel unattractive, does not make you feel bad for who you are as a human being, lesser than. So if you're interacting, and I'm guessing that's why he gets so much media attention, because you have a lot of people who are watching him, I think most people. Well, I imagine there's three groups. One is like I said, the group of people that see him as the toxic masculine ideal that society has actually injected into their heads. And they're like, finally, someone is representing it and being unapologetic about it. And then I think you have other people that are probably conservatives in politics, and they might look to him and say, like, yeah, he's sticking it to the liberals, because there's that whole childishness. And then I think there's probably another group of people that are triggered by him. If you're a woman, you've experienced the sexism in your society, and he is a very good representation of that, right? It's an overt representation of the sexism that has been victimizing women all the time. Like, by extension, is he saying that he can use people sexually? You know, there's that whole notion. I don't want to put thoughts in his head, but that's where that comes from. If you have all those toxic masculine beliefs, by extension, you can use women sexually for whatever you want, and women supposedly want that, according to this ridiculous idea. Anyway, I'm guessing there's a lot of people who have experienced sexism who he represents this unapologetic representation of something you've encountered either overtly or subtly your entire life, and so it would provoke a lot of pain from that oppression and anger towards him. I think there's another group of people who would look at him and just think, like, he's ridiculous. I guess there's probably another group, I would surmise, of men who look at him and say, well, I don't like the way he's saying it, but he is kind of speaking truth to power, and not a lot of people are doing it. I like his moxie, and half the stuff I don't agree with, but at least he's being honest about something that no one else is talking about. I'm guessing there's a group of men who might even consider themselves feminists, but are really looking for someone to say what they truly want to be said. All right, well, let's end it there and pick up next time where we left off, because I've been yammering, so this video is getting a little long. So tune in next time when I continue watching this video, and everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it, you really, really do.